Hello everyone, welcome back to our sessions MuleSoft for Salesforce developers. This is the second session of our series, and without getting late, we can get started. So just again as a quick introduction, I am Shravan Lingam, one of the MuleSoft ambassadors and meetup leaders, and I have overall 8+ years of IT experience and over 7.5 years of MuleSoft experience, and I am the owner of MuleSoft-TechZone. And without wasting our time, let's see what is today's agenda. So I will start with the recap of our previous session. So this will be our regular routine, like whenever I am starting my session, I will just give a recap of previous session so that we are in line with the series. And today I am going to discuss mainly about API-led connectivity approach. I will again explain. So my teaching is like I always explain the things in a layman's language, but try to relate that technically, and you have to put it in technical things. And the other thing is the API-led connectivity approach is one of the important topics in MuleSoft. That is basically an architecture. So initially you might not understand the concept I will be able to make you understand, but what is the use and all, once you get started with MuleSoft and working in real-time projects, then only you will be able to understand. So if you are not able to understand why we are using API-led connectivity, never mind. Initially you feel like that, but eventually you will understand the concepts. So within that we will be discussing about system, process and experience APIs, and I will show you how to create a Anypoint platform account. So let's discuss about the recap of our previous session. So we have discussed, so before learning MuleSoft, we should always know what are web services. We have discussed that, and we have discussed what are APIs. You might have seen that restaurant example, so and that's good. And then web services versus APIs, and then example of web services and APIs. We have seen like 3 examples. One is the restaurant example, and I have given a walkthrough through bbc.com, and then the Make My Trip website. So, and at last we have discussed what is MuleSoft. So now in this particular session I am going to explain about API-led connectivity approach. Okay, so what is API-led connectivity? So API-led connectivity is an architectural approach, okay, that is associated with MuleSoft. So MuleSoft came up with a concept. I would say I would rather use concept, okay, instead of architectural approach if it is too technical. So they came up with an approach or a concept of API-led connectivity, okay. And this API-led connectivity is something like the creation of well-defined APIs for different layers of organizations. So in simpler terms, to understand in a simpler manner, whatever APIs we are developing, again an API, what is an API? You are doing some code, you are writing some code, or you are developing an API to do some functionality to exchange the information, okay, from one system to another system or even more systems. So to do some functionalities, we will develop some APIs. Initially please try to understand in that way, okay. So again, once developed, what we are doing in this API-led connectivity approach is, in simpler terms, we are naming those APIs. In which category does this APIs fall into? That is how we have segregated. So we have segregated these APIs into 3 layers. One is called system layer, process layer and experience layer. Very simple. So all that you need to know is like there are 3 layers in API-led connectivity approach, and whatever APIs we develop, either we call them as system API or a process API or experience API. So how to call them, how can I call that particular API is called a process API, or how can I call like this is a experience API? I will show you in the next slides. But for now, you have to understand that API-led connectivity approach is a kind of concept that come up to define these APIs and which category it falls into. And as I said, API connectivity follows a bottom-up approach, okay. So it starts with creation of APIs at the system layer, so that is the bottom layer, okay, and then they are reused and combined to develop APIs in process and experience layers. So depending upon the functionality, depending upon your requirement, you will be building process and experience layers. And this approach encourages the reusability, modularity and separation of concerns, making it easier to manage and update the integrations. Again, the last point, this particular, if you want to understand into deeper, you have to work in real-time projects to understand the concept. So for now I will try to explain the concept, but don't worry if you're not understanding this, like how can I know that it is reused, or modularity, all these terms you don't have to worry about, because everyone starts from that phase. Even initially when I learned MuleSoft, I don't know the approach, but when I started working on it, I came to know what is the importance of API-led connectivity approach. Okay, so without wasting our time, let's start with system APIs. So when I'm discussing about system, process and experience layers, we have to, I will be explaining in a way like what are the APIs that are called as, why these APIs are called as system APIs, so and why they are called as process and experience, so that it will be easy. So system APIs are built to connect through underlying system. So again, these technical terms you have to understand the meaning, actual meaning. When I say underlying systems, it means that the direct systems, okay, the backend systems, or it can be a database, it can be a Salesforce, it can be Amazon Web Service, or it can be anything, any third party API. So all these are called like underlying system, which contains your raw data, the actual data. Wherever you have this actual data, those are called underlying systems. And if our API, whatever API you have developed, for example, you developed an API that is connecting to a Salesforce, that is connecting to Salesforce directly, okay, then that particular system you can call it as a system API, just because you are having access to Salesforce directly in that API. Okay, so basically system APIs contains the sensitive information as it contains the raw data, because all the data is present in that particular system. It can be Salesforce, it can be an Oracle database, it can be MySQL database. If you're connecting, if your API is directly connecting to like Oracle database, then that API is called as system API. This is the easier way to remember like which API is called as what. And then these particular system APIs should never be exposed for public use. Okay, this is not given to the consumers, clients. Again, in my previous video I have explained like what is consumer, who is client. So everyone is the same. So consumer, client. So consumer are nothing but you are developing an API, isn't it? So if you're developing an API, someone has to consume it, or else why we are developing an API? Why someone is paying for us to develop an API? So someone is using it. That's why we call them as consumers. Okay, and we are not going to give these system APIs to consumers, because first things, our system API is containing the sensitive information. Okay, and we don't want to expose how our system, how, for example, if you are connecting to database, I don't want the customer to know like what kind of data is exposed, metadata information or those kind of things. Okay, examples I have I have mentioned here: APIs which connects to databases, Salesforce or SAP systems, or it can be NetSuite or Jira or anything. Okay, anything that you are connecting directly to the systems are called system APIs. Now coming to the next layer, so it's very simple. So if you understand in an easier manner, it will be easy for you to understand. And process APIs. So what are called process APIs? So these process APIs are built to compose or combine two or more system APIs. Then, so what does this process API contains? You are just calling the system APIs, but you will never be having direct access to the systems like Salesforce or database, because we are already having our system APIs developed on top of those Salesforce or database or anything. Now in process layer, what you will do is you will call either, like if you want to compose, if you want to transform something, or if you want to do any kind of business logic. Okay, then process APIs comes into picture. So if you are doing some logic, usually the logics and all will be present in process APIs. Okay, so if you want to combine, for example, there are two different systems, one is Salesforce and the other one is like Snowflake, and you want to transfer the data from Snowflake to Salesforce. And imagine the request for Salesforce, the data or the data type of Snowflake will be different, for Salesforce is different, but our goal is to to transfer data from Snowflake to Salesforce. So we have to do some transformation, because the type of input and output of two systems are different. So we have to make sure we need to do some transformation so that we get the data from Snowflake and put it inside Salesforce. So there some kind of transformation or business logic or something is required. So in those case we use process APIs usually to do. So if you want to remember this way, it is like to do any kind of transformation or to implement any kind of business logics or shape the data out of system APIs, you will be using process APIs. And it may perform operations like business operation, logics like aggregation or splitting or routing the data. And last point, process APIs must be private and should not be exposed for public use as well, here as well, because you are doing some logic. Okay, still there is some logic going on, and you must be asking someone, why can't I create just one system API and expose it to consumer? As I said, the concept, to understand the concept, it takes time for you to understand the concept, but once you get real-time experience, you will understand why we are having these three kind of APIs. We are just naming the APIs, whatever functionality we are doing, we are giving it a name. So understand in that way. So as I said, like example, aggregating means combining the custom. For example, if you have customer data and product data that comes from two different system APIs where the actual data is originated, right, to provide order status. Suppose if you want to have order status, you have product details in some Oracle database, so you will create one system API for Oracle, that purpose, for order product data. And you have customer, so we have customer details also, right, in the order status. So imagine that customer data is there in system API, another system API which is connecting to Salesforce. All the customer data is there in Salesforce. So you will expose or you will create one system API for Salesforce. So now we have two system APIs. One is which is having customer data, and the other one is having product data, which connects to do two different systems. One is for Salesforce and one is with Oracle. Now our job is to get the order status, so we need to combine both because the data is there in two different systems. We need to combine both. So we are using process APIs, or we are creating an API to do this logic, and we are naming that as process API. Okay, very simple. Coming back to experience APIs, which is one of the important ones, because we always expose for consumers or clients these experience APIs. So these are the APIs like which are kind of a wrapper either to a process API or directly to a system API, so that the client or consumer can use it. Now that in previous example itself, so let's take the order status itself. So now we have two different system APIs, one process API, right? Still we are not exposing these two APIs to the client because of the best practices we are following, right? So now we have to expose one API to the client so that he can access this underlying systems data, right? So now we are creating another API which talks to either, now in our case it will talk to process API. Process API is internally talking to system API. It's just like you are whispering, there are, imagine like there are three people, okay? One, the first guy is called consumer and the third guy is called server. So first guy whispers something to second guy, which is like process API, and process API whispers something to system API, and system API will get the information, and again system API won't talk directly to the first guy. Okay, so again system API, the third guy, talks to second, which is like process API, and process API will share the information to the experience API. So this is how usually happens. So it is not necessary that all three API, all three layers should be present for having a feature. Okay, here we are having an additional layer, process layer, just because we need a order status, and to get a order status we need like customer data and product data. As customer data and product data are in two different systems, we had to create two different system APIs, and to combine that we have created process API. But imagine both customer data and product data is there only in Salesforce. Imagine in that way. So there is no need for us to create two different system APIs, because if the end system is of the same type, like only Salesforce, then only one system API can be created. And as you have created system API, what you can do is, if there is no logic to be performed, so there is no need for us to create a process API. So now you can directly create an experience API which can directly call system API. Okay, so this is, many of them has this question like, do we need all three layers? No, it entirely depends upon the use case. Okay, usually we have only either system or experience layers, or we have all three layers based upon the business logic or the transformations required. All right, so clients, so in this way, when we create experience APIs, these clients or consumers or whatever you call them will not have exposure or contact with the direct raw data. Okay, so the client is not having direct access to Salesforce, because we have in the middle like process and system layers. Okay, and in this experience API, sometimes we might be having like minimal data transformation. For example, there are two different consumers who one consumer wants the same data, like order details, to be exposed as a JSON data, or the other customer wants it to be in XML format. But the end result is like they want to get the order status. So order status can be viewed in two different, if two consumers wants in two different formats, what you can do is you can use one experience API, so that we can have just one minimal data transformation in that, and you can expose it. Okay, and remember, if there is any change in system APIs, because you want to add some new field inside Salesforce, or if you want to add new column inside Oracle database, here you don't have to modify or change anything in experience or process layers, because like unless and until there is a requirement to add a new field directly, you will change experience API as well. But if you want to, the reason why we are having different APIs is the impact of one API should not have the impact on the other API. Again, this will be complicated to understand for you initially, but once you get habituated with coding and developing APIs, you will understand. All right, so this is the concept of system, process and experience layer, and all these three layers are falls under API led connectivity approach. So basically, again I will reiterate, we are developing APIs and naming them as system, process and experience layers based upon the points that I have discussed. Okay, now let's see a small example, like how we, like take a business scenario and how we can do. We all know that we book flights on mobile apps, or no, we use some apps to book the flights or get the itinerary of the flight, alright, and getting notifications, all those stuff, right? So let's see how it works in API led connectivity. Imagine that you have a flight API, okay, which contains data, flight information data or airlines data, okay, in a database. Okay, and then we have customer API, which has customer information in Salesforce. So now we have two different systems. Okay, one is like database, Oracle database, and the other one is like customer API, which has customer information, which is connecting to Salesforce. And there is a notification API, which will basically sends notification to email or WhatsApp. Okay, and we have another payment API. We have to do some payment, right, transactions. For that we are calling some Visa API. Okay, in this case you can see each one of the API is connecting to a different system. Here when I say system, it can be a database, it can be a Salesforce, it can be Gmail or Visa. So we call them as systems. Okay, these are called underlying systems. So if there are different, we will create different APIs to connect to them. Okay, very simple. To connect to them, we create an API. So flight API, it's connecting to Oracle database. Customer API, it is connecting to Salesforce. Notification API, it connects to either Gmail or WhatsApp, whatever it is. And payment API, it connects to Visa. This Visa can be a API as well, but it is an external system for us. Okay, so all these are called system APIs. Okay, because it is connecting to these systems directly. Okay, next, now we have a use case where we need to do process payment, payment process. You need to pay something. So to pay, we need some information, isn't it? And then you have another another business scenario where you need to check the pre-booked flight status. Okay, you have already booked your flight and you want to know the status. Okay, and the third thing is like you want only to get notifications. So there are three different business scenarios now. So what will happen for process payment? It will connect with flight API and customer API and payment API. So this to do this process, payment process, we need flight information, yes, which airline you want to select, and of course you need your customer information with full name, first name, email ID, etc. And third one is, once you have both customer and flight information, you need to pay, because this is, you are doing payment. So for that you are using a MasterCard or Visa card, so you will connect to that API. So you are calling 3 different system APIs, doing some business logic here in the process payment. Similarly, for example, you want to get the flight status of already booked flight. What you will do, you will have to get the flight information, and you will get, you need customer information again, and to send the notification you need to send notification, you can use notification API, WhatsApp or Gmail, right? So what you are doing in this layer, so all this process we call is like process APIs, that's why it is process, right? What you are doing, you are connecting to more than one system here, just because to serve a business use case, business purpose, right? So for payment process payment, you are connecting to flight API, customer API and payment API. To check the status, you don't need payment API because you are pre-booked, it's already booked. So you just need your customer name and flight, which flight is, he will do. And if you want only to send a notification, you can connect to the notification API, right? So this is how internally when we develop APIs, we do this process, okay? That is called process API. Now that we are having only process going on, we are developing something, but still customer is not having any API to connect with to get this data, right? So now if you want to book a flight, if you want to check any offers are present, or if you want to let if you want to know itinerary status, if you are opening a mobile app, you have all these features as well, right? Booking a flight is one of the feature, or you can say that is the business use case. To check the current itinerary status, one is the use case. So what will happen, this book flight, okay, will connect to process payment API and notification API here. Why? Now we have discussed like bottom up approach. Now imagine that you are booking a flight, a consumer is booking a flight. So when he calls booking flight API, it is internally calling process payment and send notification APIs together, okay? And this process payment API internally again calling flight API, customer API and payment API, okay? So once process payment is done, then it will send notification. Similarly, if you want to check if customer wants to have any offers, right, to check any offers, that will depend upon your previous booked flights, correct? And if you want to check the itinerary status, yes, itinerary status is again for previous booked flights. So the reason why we are using the same API for both offers for customer and itinerary status is both are dependent upon the pre-booked flight status. So here what you are doing, even for offers for customer or itinerary status, we are reusing the same API. That is the concept of segregating the APIs, dividing the APIs and putting it under system, process and experience layers, right? And for itinerary status, you just need to see what is the previous flight you have booked and send the notification. That's it. And all these top layers are called experience APIs. So it might be difficult for you to understand, but try to understand in a easier manner. Now imagine this, I told like experience APIs are exposed to customers or clients. So here I am a customer, I am going on a website to book a flight. So I will send my information, I will click on book flight. Internally book flight is calling process payment and send notification, and process payment internally is calling flight information, customer information, payment to serve your purpose. So imagine your restaurant example, a waiter is taking the request from the customer, okay? Imagine that way. So here the waiter, the API, experience API is the waiter, he takes the information from customer, send it to process system, and system is like server. So once the process is done, it will send back the response to experience API, okay? And here you can see for offers for customer and itinerary status, we are reusing the APIs to do that, right? So that is the concept. So you build it once and reuse multiple times. Imagine that all the functionality is there in only single API, for example, right? In that case, any change, for example, imagine that notification APIs, there is some reason why WhatsApp is not working, WhatsApp went down, okay? Now imagine, and so what you can do is you can stop notification API, but that will not affect in booking a flight, right? Because other APIs, flight, customer and payment APIs are up and running, right? So this is the concept of reusing, segregating or dividing the APIs. So basically what you will do is you would code something. So understand in this way, you are coding something to serve some purpose, and based upon what you are coding, what API you have developed, we are naming them. Either it is a system API, process API or experience API. Suppose you have developed application where you are connecting to Salesforce to get the customer information. You have coded everything. Now we need to name it. Now what I will see according to the approach or concept, okay, MuleSoft says that if you are connecting directly to Salesforce, that means you are connecting to a system. So it will fall under system API. Or if I am developing something where I am calling two different already existing APIs, flight API and customer API, and doing some logic, then what according to MuleSoft concept, okay, I am connecting to two different system APIs and I am performing business logic. So this is process API. And if I am not doing any transformations or minimal transformation and I am creating an API to expose it to the client, we call it as experience layers. Okay, this is the concept of API-led connectivity approach. Now, before going to Anypoint platform, I can give you one more small example. Okay, online store example. Imagine when customer place orders, there is an online store, okay, to purchase something. Okay, whenever customer places some order, and you have to separate, you have a separate system which manages inventory. For example, you have shoes, okay, Adidas shoes. You will be purchasing it online. Okay, so Adidas should also maintain its inventory store, okay, just to keep it sync. Whenever you are buying something, for example, if you are buying 3 red shoes, then immediately Adidas has to make sure that inventory system is updated by removing 3 shoes from its inventory. That's how you can know how many shoes are left in the inventory, correct? So this way you are not selling items that you don't actually have in the stock. Okay, for example, 3 red shoes are done, okay, they are purchased. You have to also make it like what you're doing, you are purchasing something, but internally it should also connect with inventory system and make sure that 3 red shoes are removed, and so that next customer can see how many red shoes are available, right? Just try to imagine that way. Now what I will do, I will create an experience API. Okay, you can set up an experience API which is like front end for your online store, and when a customer places an order, the experience APIs will be receiving that order. That is the first step. Okay, customer is calling experience API, that is like, imagine like front end. So he got the request. Next stage is process API. So this API acts like a traffic cop, okay, traffic police. So it takes, or you can like waiter, so it takes the order details from experience API and then formats them in a way that inventory system understand. Here, that's what I told you earlier, like when we are connecting with Snowflake or Salesforce, right? Two different systems understand two languages. For example, I speak my native language Telugu, okay, my friend speaks in his native language Hindi, and my another friend speaks native language in English, right? Now if suppose a Telugu person, like Telugu speaking person and Hindi speaking person are talking to each other, right, there should be a common language to speak to, so that it is understood by both of them. So that is why we are doing all these transformations, okay, right? So what our common language would be English. So when we communicate using English, so it will be understood by both Telugu speaking person and Hindi speaking person, right? So that's where we are transforming. So imagine that this process API acts like a traffic police or your converter. It takes the order details from experience API and then formats them in a way that inventory system understands. It then passes this formatted order to the next step. What is our next step? Talking to system APIs, because we are coming from experience, then process, then system API. So this API is connection to your inventory system. So it can be this inventory system, for example, the data can be in a Salesforce or the data can be in database. Okay, it receives the formatted order from previous process API and updates your inventory. So if a customer buys 3 red shoes, the system API tells your inventory to reduce the count of red shoes by 3. So through this all 3 experience, process and system APIs working together, your online store website and your inventory system communicate seamlessly. whenever customer is ordering, automatically your inventory system is also getting updated. So this is the use of APIs or API-led connectivity approach. This way, these APIs translates the information so that the systems can understand each other. Okay, this is the concept. Try to listen for 1 or 2 times, try to explore more content, you will get to understand. Okay, so in the last session, if you have observed that I told like MuleSoft is an integration platform, and MuleSoft is it is like API management platform. And I told like why we are calling API management. It is because you can design your APIs, you can develop your APIs, you can deploy your APIs, you can manage and monitor the APIs using one single platform. And I use this term one-stop place for APIs, right? Imagine if you want to buy something, for example, if you it's a Sunday. Imagine in this way. I'm explaining in general terms. It is a Sunday and your family wants to buy some clothes. Okay, also they need to do some grocery shopping. Okay, and again you need to do some car wash or something, right? All three things has to be done. Now you tell me, do you go to 3 different places to perform all these 3 actions, or you look for a place where all these 3 actions are served at one place, right? We always go to which serves at a one place, because it will reduce our time. Okay, and time is directly proportional, inversely proportional to money, right? You can save your money, reduce time, you can save more money. Same way, if you want to design, develop, deploy, monitor, if you are using other technologies, you might need to go to different places or use different softwares or tools to perform those actions. But here no need, because we have Anypoint platform released by MuleSoft, which serves all these actions. That's why I called Anypoint platform as one-stop place for APIs. Now, as I said like before, designing, developing, deploy, manage, secure, reuse, you can do everything with MuleSoft Anypoint platform. So now let's go to Anypoint platform. So this is how it looks, Anypoint platform. So let me first quickly go to anypoint.mulesoft.com. Go to anypoint.mulesoft.com. For the first time you need to sign up here. Okay, please enter your full name, email, phone number, company username and password. Company, if you are not working for any company, you can just keep it by default MuleSoft, or you can keep anything, and then create an account. Please remember, this account is valid for 30 days. It is 30 days free trial account. Okay, now a question comes to your mind, Shravan, what if it is like expiring after 30 days? I need to use a different email ID? I would say no. Please don't use different email IDs. Here you can see we are using full name, email, and there is a username here. You can use the same email ID, but you can create a different username. Okay, the only thing is you will lose all the data what is there in the last 30 days that you have developed. So what you can do is you can take a backup of it and you can deploy it. But as this is a trial account, you cannot expect more from MuleSoft team, because they are already providing you a free account. Okay, so don't worry about that. So please sign up. Once you sign up, you can see something like this. Okay, once you sign up, this is the page where you will land. And as I said, like there are different features. Okay, this is like online cloud platform, right? So you can log in from any part of the world, you can manage APIs from any part of the world. Okay, so you can see there are multiple features. Okay, so I don't want to get into deep dive on this, but I will just explain. As I said here, designing APIs, let's go for the first one, designing APIs. There is something called design center. For it, you can click it, start designing, and you can start designing your APIs. I will give you in our next session, the first session would be on designing APIs, so don't worry about it. I will explain you more details on that, designing APIs. Next, developing APIs, same, I think in the same one you can develop the APIs as well in the design center. When you click on start design, you will have a feature where you can create and import from file and all this stuff. Next, create is for using code builder, you can create it. This is a new feature that we got. Okay, usually we use Anypoint platform, Anypoint Studio which is like a tool to develop APIs on our local. But now we have another new cool feature like Anypoint Code Builder, where you can launch it like online and you can code it from the browser itself instead of downloading a tool. Okay, and I need to explore more on that, but for now we have Anypoint Studio to develop it. And then Exchange is the place where you will have all your APIs that are developed and published. Okay, so that stakeholders or your architects can view. Okay, I will explain all the stuff like why we are using Exchange and all. And Runtime Manager is used to, here you can see, deploy APIs, right? So Runtime Manager is used to deploy the APIs. Then manage APIs, you can manage using you know, monitoring, or you know, Anypoint API governance or access management, anything. Okay, API manager is also there to manage your APIs. So different features in this Anypoint platform serves different purpose. Okay, so Design Center to design APIs, develop APIs, you can use Code Builder or you can use Anypoint Studio. Then Exchange where you can find APIs, and to manage APIs you can use API manager. So to secure APIs we have like, you know, secrets manager or security. So you have all these things at one place called Anypoint platform. Now you should understand, this is like a mall, okay, shopping mall, where you find everything at one place. Okay, so please create an account. Before getting started, by next session you have to create your account so that you will be ready, and you have to practice along with me. Okay, so summary of this session, we have discussed what is API-led connectivity approach, and we have discussed in detail about system, process and experience layers, and a couple of examples. One is like flight, you know, booking flight, and the other one is like inventory, like buying shoes. And we have seen how Anypoint platform account looks like. And yep, that's it for this session. Please follow us on these social media platforms for Apex hours, and you can also follow me in these social media platforms like MuleSoft-TechZone, SravanLingam.com, and you can actually connect with me on LinkedIn with my name, Stravan Lingam. Hope you have liked this session, and see you in the next session. Thank you.